Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. Today, we're going to talk about disappointment, and we're also going to talk about resilience. We're also going to talk about that beast mindset and not giving up on your dream. And just imagine, if you will, with me, your career being totally erased from your life, family being traumatized, friends being disappointed, and you yourself are disappointed and questioning, why did I do this? Look what has happened to my life now. Today on the show, I'm grateful that she took the time to come on the show to give an account of accountability within herself that she placed upon herself and the things that her choices made to not only the community, but her family and friends. This name will sound familiar, but before we get started, remember, this is a judge-free zone. I don't want everybody just, oh, I know that name and blah, 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 blah. Let's hear it straight from the person's mouth on what actually happened, how she managed to bounce back. And without further ado, let's welcome to the set the one, the only Miss Jennifer. Make sure I get this last name right. Ruziscka.
Ruziscka.
I got it. Okay.
You're good.
I broke it down into syllables, like in my terminology. This is how I look at it, because I used to be a school teacher too, but I didn't teach English like you did. But before we get started, your name has surfaced all over the social media, the newspaper. You didn't want it to happen, but it happened, and all hell broke loose. Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about you. Who is Jennifer? Who is Jennifer?
Well, I'm 52. I am a mother of 2 children, recently divorced after 23 years of marriage. Grew up in Ohio, born and raised in the same area of Ohio. Had a really wonderful upbringing at home with, 2 loving parents. My father was an anesthesiologist. My mom had the blessing of being able to stay at home, and I have 3 siblings. I was the oldest of 4, and we had a really, I had a great childhood and a great young adulthood, and they were able to provide for me, put me through college, and I don't have complaints, anything to complain about when it comes to growing up.
Let's go. Let's start this show off on the right foot. You grew up not wanting, loving family, anesthesiologist, which is my favorite when I go to surgery. Anytime you go to surgery, they always say, I'll be your best friend. I see why.
You know what my dad said? It was, I pass gas for a living. That was his line.
And that's a good gas.
Yeah.
You still live in the same community and stuff. The choice that you made, which we'll get into later, must have impacted the whole community. I don't know how I can still stay there. This is just me knowing that the whispers still linger of that dreadful day. Take me down the blueprint of that particular day in question. Like, what was going on in your life?
You mean the day then that it all broke? The story broke
before the story broke.
Before the story broke.
How did it all transpire?
Well, we ended up in a financial situation where my husband was no longer working, and I was getting phone calls, and phone calls from mortgage lender, leasing agent for the car, and it became apparent when I questioned him about these phone calls that. Yeah, after 5 years of not working, he was holding a lot of important financial details. He was keeping a lot of that stuff a secret, and so it exploded, and I panicked. What are we going to do? We need to keep the house. We have only 2 cars for 4 drivers. What are we going to do?
So he took a severance package, and within that severance package, there's a limitation on how long that money's going to last.
Correct.
You were a school teacher in 9th grade, English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Been an English teacher for how many years?
28 years.
28 years. First marriage or second marriage?
First marriage.
First marriage ever. Beautiful home, built a home. You wanted the same type of lifestyle that you grew up with your mom and dad. Stability, the structure, and all of a sudden...
Strong values.
Strong values.
Yeah.
Were there strong values in the house?
No, the house was full of a lot of toxicity.
What do you mean?
There was a lot of verbal abuse. I think there was a lot of mental angst as a result of things that were going on. I know my son was going through some real struggles at one point early on in high school. That contributed to some of it, but then, dad being laid off. And
so all this stuff, these emotional outbursts, this behavior pattern with him and your son or siblings, your son, this happened after the layoff?
No. These happened. Well, no, for the first year that we were in the home, because this all transpired. So the first year we were in the home is when he actually started going through my son started going through some mental struggles. And then my husband was laid off, or took the severance, was given some options, took the severance about almost a year into being in that new home. Mm. But then obviously my son was still struggling, but then my husband was apparently going through some of his own mental breakdowns.
Before the mental breakdown, before the severance package or him not being no longer employed, how was things in your home?
They were great. We wouldn't have built...
You had communication?
Yes, absolutely. We wouldn't have built that home and moved there if we were not in a good place as a family. We would not have made that decision to do that.
I'm trying to understand why the sudden shift, alteration in your husband's mind. You build a house, everything seems to be going good. He takes a severance package. Did you guys not communicate more in depth after the layoff to keep things intact? It was 5 years he's been off of work. So, how often were you guys communicating about finances, about your relationship, about the children? I just can't understand that.
Sure. Well, clearly not often enough. We had separate credit cards, separate bank accounts. We ran everything separately. He handled the big bills, mortgage, taxes, cars, and I handled, what the expenses were for the kids, the groceries, and basic utilities. And we just kept it separate that way. It just was better. We had two different, perspectives on, what the kids needed, how much the kids needed, and a lot of his money ended up just being spent on himself. So it just was better for our marriage that way. It just saved us some arguments. So I was not aware of, I would certainly ask him, hey, how are things? Oh, we've got some investments. I've got some investments. Remember, you got the financial advisor. We've got some investments. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. COVID hitting didn't help. Because this was a year prior to COVID, so that didn't help. But certainly once COVID and people were back to work, there were plenty of opportunities for him to resume and do the same. But I was still under the impression that he was able to make ends meet with what money he had put aside.
When you're talking a 5-year period of not working, I think I would have been more adamant within the first couple months. Why let that particular issue string out for 5 years and not be proactive? Where you was working, but you're a couple. That should have been what we call a flag. Sure.
Well, and the problem was anytime I would bring up that subject in a conversation, there'd be some arguing. Definitely, high level of confrontation. And so as a result, I think my son being kind of a protector then of his mom, probably being somewhat disappointed in his dad, he would step in. And so those altercations would start off verbal, and then sometimes they would become very physical. And so for me, it was just better off to avoid any kind of confrontation like that from happening if I just didn't even bring up the subject.
So you was able to go 5 years and just basically avoid confrontation, knowing that you don't have a solid backing to know if bills are being handled. But let's move forward. So how engaged were you with your work versus what was going on in the house? 'Cause
Well,
evidently there's nothing going on in the house as far as relationship wise, I assume.
right, no,
Other than your kids.
correct.
So where was your time being spent?
That's the other disconnect, is that, all of my time was spent devoted to the kids in my classroom. And so it wasn't just a job from, 7:30 to 2:30. I was spending a lot of time after school hours invested in what I was doing to grow those kids, to help them to grow and learn and become, strong individuals too at the same time. So there was I buried myself. It was almost like my work became an escape from what was happening at home. What was happening at home was not under control, but I could get into my classroom and I could have a handle on what was happening and how it was happening for the most part.
But what about your skills as a mom? How did that affect your skills as a mom? I mean, if it's affecting you as the wife, it's got to be doing collateral damage to your children. I mean, I know you're dealing with kids at your school, and I'm trying to ask the questions what I think the viewers might be asking. Where was your connection as a mom to your own children?
It was not as deep as it should have been. I wasn't very present in their lives as I should have been, and that even happened prior to us being in this new home. That was just kind of the dynamic that I built. That I was invested in the kids at school. My kids were at home. They had two loving parents. They were working hard in school, doing what they needed to do. So unlike a lot of the kids I serviced at the school, they didn't have that kind of support and encouragement at home that my children had. So I felt like my kids were doing pretty well and didn't maybe need mom as much as they truly did and should have had in their lives.
Let's go a little bit deeper. I'm taking the people down the story, and I'm trying to see what question would they ask next. I think this would be a question they would ask next. 5 years, you guys aren't communicating pretty much in the house. Your husband's doing what? You guys aren't involved.
No.
What he's doing and what are you doing? You got to have some type of communication. You can't vent to your children. You can't vent to your students. So what's happening in your household with you and him as a couple, as a married couple? This is no longer functional.
Right. No. I mean, there was very little communication whatsoever. I mean, we didn't talk much. Family dinners, we didn't sit down much. I mean, oftentimes when we did sit down as a family, some things would come up in conversation, and next thing you know, I'm sitting at the table by myself.
What do you mean? Things would come up at the table like what?
Well, either I would say something and maybe it just came across in a certain way, and he would make a comment about it.
Give me an example. What would you say at the dinner table?
I might talk about, or say something like about my son and say, well, Brady is working really hard on this. And well, of course, what else is he going to do? He doesn't do anything else. I mean, he's not playing football anymore. It's just, it's almost like he would look for things to pick at because he was so unhappy with himself.
Did you bring up, why don't you have a job at the dinner table?
Well, yes, I did that, and not just at the dinner table, but sometimes, even after I would, at the start of the day, I brought it up a lot, and sometimes in some pretty, harsh ways. Post-it notes I would put all over the house: get a job, get a job, get a job. Because it's like, if he's not going to listen to me or we can't have a conversation about it, at least I can still try to send those messages of how important it is for him to get to work. And I did even at one point just blankly ask him, why don't you have a job yet? And that's a really good question. And I think it was speechless after that. I mean, I didn't know that's the answer. That's the answer that you have to give.
did you ever question, are you having an affair to your husband?
No.
Why not? 5 years of everything dysfunctional, from not marriage to not communicating. I think those are some questions I would be asking myself.
Yeah, I honestly, I was uber focused on what I knew that I could control. I think a lot of it was that, I mean, and if he were to tell me that he is having an affair, what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I certainly didn't have the means to just get up and leave, especially at that point, given that when we built the house, we were making more than double of what I was bringing in, you know, independently. So I wasn't in a position to think about, okay, if I bring this up and he says yes, what's going to be my response to that? So it was just easier not to bring it up at all.
When do you decide to do something? I mean, clearly this is lifeless. You can't keep going to teach students knowing that your house is handicapped right now. When do you as a mom step up and say, okay, I need to do something different? And when you did, what happened?
Well, I stepped up once I realized that we were in jeopardy of losing the house, and when we were in jeopardy of losing one of the 2 cars that we had. And that's when I made the decision to create an account online on OnlyFans and Fansly and make some money on the side.
Now, I'm going to ask a question. I looked at some of the remarks, and I'm going to address some of those remarks. A lot of people said that that particular thing was carefully orchestrated between you and your husband because of the situation that you guys were both in, that he felt like putting you out there, exhibition, would bring quicker income and you might like it. What's the take on that?
Yeah, no, he had absolutely no idea that that's what I decided to do. And yeah, so he was not involved. And
how does that make you feel knowing that somebody would, I mean, people are entitled to think what they think, because a lot of the women that have appeared on that when it went viral, a lot of husbands did not know that their wives were doing this, and a lot of the women became addicted to the attention, the money, and trading self-worth for money. But you said that was not
the case. No, absolutely not. I mean, from the very first post, I just felt like, what have I been reduced to?
Mm-hmm.
What have I been reduced to? This is not who I am. I mean, to be honest, I mean, sex has always been very sacred to me. You know, intimacy has always been very sacred to me. I've never put myself out there. I was never even one to, you know, walk around outdoors and, you know, try to portray myself in a sexual light.
Mm-hmm.
So that, yeah, it felt dirty. It felt wrong from the very beginning, but I was desperate.
How did the opportunity come to begin with? How did you even know about it? Because you said you wasn't social media savvy. So how did that even come to you?
It was, I mean, I think a male friend was joking one time about how, oh, you could always do something like this, kind of as a joke. And, well, you could. And I mean, my goodness, I mean, what are the, but and of course I knew the stories. I knew that teachers had been fired for their accounts like this being discovered. But the fact that the platform is what it is and it's international, I mean, it just seemed to me like that it was going to be highly unlikely.
So who did you share your story and your struggles with prior to doing this? That's interesting. You got girlfriends because you live in a small town? I mean, if your town is that small and everybody knows your business, I mean, why didn't somebody say, look, here's some opportunities, here's a job, here's something, blah, 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 blah.
This took me about 30 to 40 minutes in a night. And I was putting in about 4 to 5 hours every after school hours, 4 to 5 after school hours just on teaching alone. And it wasn't, it was grading papers, it was putting together materials, responding to emails. Maybe, kids might post, students might, I always called them my kids, but they would post comments, needing some help on something on an assignment in Google Classroom. So I was really there for them at all times. I mean, my work continued. My home was just a change of venue. And so I needed to find something, some way. I mean, if I were to take a second job, I was going to have to compromise all of that. And I had been in that school for nearly 30 years with the same ninth grade level curriculum for the most part, obviously adapting, changing some things with it, but I was going to have to change my level of devotion. I was going to have to compromise that if I was going to be having to check out at 2:30, 3 o'clock every single day in order to manage a second job.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, you do whatever it takes, so to speak, when it comes to your family. And now it's already been thrown in your face that your husband is not going to step up and provide. The viewers will say, okay, I would never have went to an OnlyFans. I would have never exposed myself. And more importantly, you're a school teacher. You have to take some type of oath on that. So you probably have been met with a lot of scrutinism. What do you say to the fact that you got women and men to be like, hey, I wouldn't have done it. I would have did this. I would have went here. I would have went there. What do you say to that? Because once again, you're still a school teacher. They're sending their students to you to look up to you, and you were getting ready to make one of the most, you're going to make a
controversial decision.
Yeah.
Controversial decision. Sure. Well, and again, I wasn't just any school teacher. I mean, I created a high standard of education in my classroom. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just about, giving students work, having them practice certain skills. I was building and building up inside of them, not just skills, but an understanding of who they are becoming. What is it that you want out of life? Their potential. They were recognizing potential that they never saw before. I always set the bar really high, but never told them they just had to jump to get there. I gave them the resources that they needed, the tools, the guidance, the lessons, but then also the encouragement along the way. And I think that's where a lot of feedback. I spent a lot of time putting feedback on student work. Work was never busy. It was done to help showcase for them to see for themselves the potential that they truly had. It was more than just learning, it was growing.
But why would you take yourself and put yourself in that situation when you're talking about the empowerment that you're trying to instill in these children, but you're willing to, I don't like using the word degradation. So let's just say the choice that you make doesn't resonate with the message that you're trying to give to your children, and the fact that this could also impact your own children at home.
Right, which is certainly something that I didn't even think about those ramifications until it was too late. But that's just it. Is I knew that I could continue to maintain that high level of devotion in my classroom by taking just 30, 40 minutes a night, and I could make a couple $100 just from posting, in a week. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like much, but that was definitely going to be making a difference. And I could do that with just posting 30, 40 minutes of content in a night, or sliding into some DMs. I mean, that's something was going to have to give.
But why not just go get a job? Get a second job? Because
that second job was going to compromise my level of dedication to my students. And I know that seems like, well, aren't you showing a lack of dedication to your students because of the choice that you made to go and I get all of that. But that, at the end of the day, that has absolutely nothing to do with the high standard of performance that I held those kids to in my classroom and helped them to achieve that high level of performance. What I was doing after hours, you know, as discreetly as I possibly could, had absolutely no impact on those kids and their ability to learn and grow in my classroom.
Okay, so you would tell the viewers that what you do on your off time, off the clock, is your business.
It should be. It should be. You know, that's the thing. There's nothing criminal. When you know, you got to be careful with that, because obviously what I did, it wasn't criminal. And it wasn't
criminal.
It wasn't
but
illegal.
It was moral, ethics, as far as the school's concerned, correct?
Correct.
So ask yourself, let me ask you this. What is your definition of moral character and moral hazard?
Well, I think when you think about morals, you want to make sure that you are not bringing harm to others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you are holding yourself to a high standard, and you also then have those high standards for others. But you want to make sure that whatever choices you're making, other people aren't going to be harmed by them. So obviously, what I did,
it harmed people.
Yes, it harmed people.
That's moral hazard.
It is. It is.
Who did you share this before you decided to undergo? And let me first say, I know it takes a lot to come here and clear the air, but you know, we don't filter. People need to know your side, and I'm going to ask the questions. I know that might be hard, and I'm sorry.
No.
At the same time, but and remember, this is judge free, so you need to listen. And I'm trying to ask her the questions I think the viewers would ask. I'm not trying to be hard or anything like that. You said a guy told you this. So you're having trouble in your house. You know, you have a confidant, which is the guy friend. Why do you think he decided this just utterly blunt go to that, go do this? Because to me, if you're my friend and I see you're going through these things, the last encouragement I'm going to say is go do that.
I think he made it sound as if I had the potential to make money on there and I could do it. Like how are people going to know? He made it seem like, you know, if you're not out there advertising this, how are people going to find out?
Why didn't you talk to your girlfriends?
I did. I talked to my two very dear friends. They were more, they didn't think it was a good idea. But the conversations focused more on the fact that this is what I'm feeling like I have to resort to protect my family financially.
There were no other alternatives in your town. I'm just trying to ask
sure.
What they would probably ask.
Alternatives to be able to bring in the kind of money I needed to bring in with only having to work maybe 45 minutes in a single day.
How many minutes was you putting into the adult industry?
That was it. 45 minutes in a single day. And then I could pull in easily just $100 in a night.
And that
$500 at the end of a week.
Let's go back to moral hazard and morals. When you looked at your kids, when you looked at the fact that you're in a lavish neighborhood, prestige neighborhood, your father anesthesiologist, you know, your own family, none of that is registering in your mind that this can eventually cause more damage than a couple of $100?
No, I think I felt I was so desperate at the time to be able to save that roof over our head and that car in the garage. And I really, truly believed that because of the person, the work ethic I had, the reputation that I had, not just at the school, but obviously in the community too, and the people who knew me, you know, nobody would ever think that I would be on a site like that. One, and then two, the likelihood of somebody being able to come across me on there was so slim that the risk of losing the house and the car, putting us in a really horrific situation, a lot of trauma as a family because of the financial strain, those risks were greater than the risk of me putting myself out there on an adult site.
So you was more concerned about keeping the image in your town, your name, the lifestyle?
I was more concerned about keeping my kids in the home that they were in because my daughter was finishing school in a school system where there was going to be no way we would be able to afford to stay there if we just continued to rely on my income. We were going to have to sell that home. There was no apartment. There was no other places to live where we could have stayed so that she could have finished out her last 2 years of high school.
Well, some people would say, if you're going to sell your home, if you're living in this lavish neighborhood, let's just throw a ballpark figure, your home is worth $250,000. That's enough to start over easily.
That's of course if you own your own home. We're still making house payments, and remember, we're not even making house payments at this time.
Mm-hmm.
We're backlogged on house payments.
Okay.
So I can't sell. I mean, we owned our home, we just built this home a year prior. And we didn't, I mean, there was some equity in the home, but not enough to be able to sell that home and find another residence within that, whether it was, to rent or buy within that same community so that my daughter could finish out her last 2 years of high school there.
What was your mindset? Is it fear now? And more importantly, if it's fear now, why did it take so long? You have 5 years. If this guy is not stepping up to the plate in his 5 years, I think I would have been a little bit more proactive within 6 months to a year.
Sure. It was easier to just escape from that than it was to try to address the situation at home because there was just so much toxicity. The altercations were brutal. I mean, it was to the point that I did not look forward to weekends. Like when it's like it's Friday. Oh, great. I got all, 2.5 days off at home. How am I going to deal with this? Holiday breaks coming up, summer break. I did not look forward to any of those at all. I would have rather have been at school because home was such an unpleasant, unhealthy environment.
People will say, walk away, take your kids, start over. Women do it all the time. What's your take on that?
Well, again, I didn't have the funds to be able to walk away with what?
But you have a job. You're still a school teacher.
I do have a job, but divorce costs money. And also being the one who works in the home.
Did he ask for a divorce or were you thinking about
it?
Divorce?
It was already very clear that we were going to, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're trying to basically minimize the extra grenades that you're being handed.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you wind up deciding to go ahead and go with this endeavor of exposure on social media. How long did you start? How long was the encounter that you were doing this?
How long until I was discovered?
Yeah.
It was not even a month.
Okay. So you go on it for now. Did your husband ever find out?
He did. He walked in while I was making some content and was shocked. And so, walked out of said some things.
What did he say? I'm just curious.
Like, you're disgusting. Really? You're disgusting.
And how did you come back? Because you had to be angry.
He walked out. And so I did. I confronted him in his office and said, I just want you to know, this is what you brought me to do. Because you won't do what you need to do. I'm having to find a way to support this family. And just remember that. I mean, as the father of the kids, as my husband, this is what you have reduced me to. And then hoping that would even be enough to, I better start looking for work. But it wasn't.
We had a comment. I'm just remember some of the comments that posted. Some people say you enjoyed it.
No.
It was a euphoria for you.
No, and here's no, it was disgusting. Like I said, I felt gross the moment that I first made that post. It weighed on me every moment since that, I put myself out there and put my body out there, and I'm having, sexual conversations with strangers, with complete strangers. And there were things there were abbreviations for things I didn't even know what they were. I mean, there were fetishes that I'd never even heard of before. So, like I said, it was, it was gross. It was disgusting, and I felt dirty. I felt gross. I was exploiting myself.
Why didn't
And
you just stop? I mean, if it got to that level and you was feeling all of this stuff, why not just stop?
because the money was finally, there was money coming in, and
So did you start trying to master the new job?
master that job.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, because you mean in terms of my content?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
you get
No, people had told me, like, you could make a lot more, any boy girl content on there. How about girl? You could do this, that, or the other thing. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm a one woman show. This is all you get. I did not want to put content out there like that and obviously in doing so, it's not like I'm going to go to my husband and say, hey, let's film ourselves having sex because I want to put this on the site. I wouldn't have done that, but no. So I wasn't making the kind of money that I could have made because I had those boundaries.
when does your word moral come into play? I mean, I'm not here to judge.
Sure.
I understand what you're saying, and I tell anybody, put yourself in her shoes. But at the end of the day, let's get real. You're gonna have women say, "I wouldn't have did that shit, no matter what." So my question is, you had to get comfortable doing what you was doing. You had to adjust to homing your craft. You may didn't want to do the 3-on-3, the thumb up the ass and all that other stuff, but you started to develop your craft.
Correct.
Had you not gotten exposed, I know this is hindsight for the 20, and you've mastered the craft, would you have kept going?
No, because I hated it. I absolutely hated it, but it was a means to an end. And then even when the exposure hit, I mean, there were all kinds of opportunities that were presented to me, film offers, being somebody's escort for, a few hours for, 4 figures. I mean, life-changing money for me was thrown at me, but I could not bring myself to do those kinds of things.
Why not? If you was willing to jump in the ocean with piranhas and you went that far and nobody knows about it, why not go the full ride?
Well, no, those offers came after the headlines broke. Well, there were some offers to be an escort, so that's true. Like I had like offers like for sugar daddy type things, but no, because that
Did
again.
you ever participate in your own camera?
Did I
ever participate in the offers that the sugar daddies, the escorts?
There were some video calls and initially, and I did very few of those because they were just so. I almost felt like I allowed somebody to rape me. I mean, to sexually assault me. That's how horrific those video calls were. So I did very few. Those were definitely a big money maker, but I couldn't bring myself to. I knew it was, although it's going to be a lot slower for me to get the money that I need to get us out of this financial hole. I couldn't do it. Those were still to this day. Those video calls replay in my head as just disgusting.
What was your mindset? How did you switch your mindset off? Because 23 years as a school teacher, when I used to be a school teacher, your mind is set to educate. What was your mindset like? How did you go from being the teacher? You already said you really wasn't connected in the household that much with your children and your husband. Now you're doing adult industry type work. Did you ever analyze what your own mindset was? Because it didn't seem to be in none of these places.
Oh, for sure. I mean, obviously, even going off to school after the next day, after having, posted content like that the night before. I mean, I was happy to be back in the place where I thrived, but there was still this, like, Mrs. Ruziscka isn't Mrs. Ruziscka, who she appears to be in front of all of us. It felt like I was living, which I was. I guess that's interesting too. I mean, I was living a double life. Nobody knew just how horrific things were for me at home. Or, most people didn't know how horrific. My students certainly didn't know how horrific things were at home. I was always smiling. I was always full of energy and genuinely, like, it wasn't a fake smile. Like, I was genuinely happy to be there. I loved what I was doing in my classroom and engaging those students. But so I was always living that double life, but that element of the double life was really difficult.
What do you mean? Because
seeing, you'd get notifications and stuff like that on your phone. So there'd be those reminders when I'm at school and I see like so-and-so is now subscribed, and it's like, oh, there's that thing again. Oh, Did
you enjoy the money? Let's be real. Did you enjoy getting the money?
I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. I was relieved to be getting the money. There was never enjoyment. Like, I never thought, oh, look at this. And this was survival. So there was never any enjoyment of getting that money. And there certainly wasn't any pride in getting money in that manner.
Let's talk a little bit about your husband. You later find out sees that you're doing this. During the process, what was he doing? He sees you doing this. Does he step up?
No.
What happens with that part?
No, he doesn't step up. He doesn't do anything. It just estranges our relationship even more, or strains the relationship even more.
Did he even talk to you and say, you know what, this is going to backfire, and you're gonna put a stain on us, the family, the town?
No, actually,
he never said nothing like that.
Nope. He was just disgusted that that's what I did, and of course I would, this is why I mean, you won't do anything. So will you go do something? Go find work, something to help bring in extra money. And he chose not to. He just turned a blind eye. He enjoyed he's free at home. He could go work out. He could have his spare time, do whatever it was that he wanted, but he wasn't ready to step up. And
so he wasn't ready to step up, but in his spare time, he was stepping up with your neighbor.
Correct.
Now, this is crazy. It sounds like a soap opera.
I know.
I don't ever want to go to your hometown.
No, I know.
like serious.
Yeah, you can't write a script like this.
So you find out. Now, were you friends with the neighbor?
Yes. Cordial. Yeah. I mean, we talked. In fact, we lived in a cul-de-sac, so we'd have all the cul-de-sac houses get together and hang out from time to time.
You guys is a regular Peyton place. So everybody knows your business, and this lady's coming into your home. You guys are having cocktails and all that kind of stuff that the rich people do in the cul-de-sac. And all the while, she's making love to your husband, and he's over.
Well, supposedly this was more of an emotional affair. She liked to play tennis. I did not. So they'd go off and they'd play tennis together, and then they would have a lot of phone conversations. Now, again, this is only what I'm told. I wasn't there much of the time at the home. Her job, there was some flexibility in terms of when she could be home during the day. So I have no idea.
Well, how does that make
the extent of that relationship?
How does that make you feel now that you look back, that you disconnected, that your relationship was so, let's say, toxic?
Yes.
That you didn't want to come home, you got kids, and all of a sudden he finds comfort in your neighbor. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, did you ever think that maybe there was really a need of communication on you guys' end?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I did even have us in, we went to therapy. We went to therapy.
How was that? I heard therapy is great.
Well, he ended up dropping out of it. And so it was me talking to Dr. Schaefer on my own, trying to figure out. And every conversation then with Dr. Schaefer was, is he working yet? Does he have a job yet? And it's, no, he does not. And here it's, time later, months later. You mean, you got to be kidding me. There's still nothing. So, I mean, I then was going to therapy just to kind of help me work through and figure out how to get through. Did
you share your thing that you...
No, therapy was done by that point. So I had dropped out of therapy, and because of the expense. I mean, I I couldn't afford these therapy appointments. So I dropped out of that. And I mean, it was really, for a while, it was like nice to be able to talk to somebody, but I had to get rid of that. It was too expensive. And obviously the whole reason we were there initially was for us to get some help as a couple.
So what do you do with your life? Your husband winds up seeking refuge with your neighbor. Did you partake in any activities for yourself to validate? Because usually what somebody said on one of the posts, which I'm remembering the posts as I go, that a lot of that stuff was done for validation because you wasn't getting the attention at home.
No,
it's 5 years.
I did not. I who doesn't like attention? I mean, people like attention, but I want attention because of contributions that I've made, achievements I've made.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that kind of attention. I don't want people, I don't need praise for, it's one thing to be able to say that you find me attractive, but I don't want somebody talking about my body.
Okay. So were you involved with anybody after a long period of time knowing that he's moved on and so forth? What about yourself?
I did. I pursued I shouldn't say I pursued. I was pursued once it became clear that I was not in a happy marriage. There was a friend at the school in an administrative role who had known. We developed a friendship over the course of 4 or 5 years. He came to know what was going on in the home in terms of, my son's decline, dad not working or husband not working, and just how toxic things were. And he would even make comments like, it's just crazy. People, nobody would ever know with the way that you present yourself here at school and how happy you are and how devoted you are, that you've got all that kind of stuff happening in the background.
Is this the same person that recommended doing the OnlyFans? He never recommended that.
Okay.
No. So,
but we did develop a relationship. Right. And it did feel good to have somebody be attracted to me. And I thought attracted to me for me. But it unfortunately became very clear that this was more of just a physical relationship on
a friends with benefits.
On his end,
Let's go back to one of the questions that was asked. I'm throwing them at you because somebody will say, Andre, you didn't say my question. You guys are both married, dysfunctional individuals, both having extramarital affairs. You're doing the adult industry thing and you're stupid. Nothing's been exposed yet as far as what you're doing. I mean, come on. You're a teacher. Your level of education is far more than what you're portraying. I mean, so one of the viewers said, once again, what were you thinking?
I don't think I had a lot. I was panicked. I mean, this was a decision that was made in a moment of panic. When I realized, property taxes weren't paid. I mean, it was more than just a mortgage.
Did you ever get foreclosure, 5 years? Did you ever get foreclosure?
The house, in fact, I just got the house out of foreclosure.
Okay.
But yes.
Let's move forward. Did you confront him about the affair?
When I knew yes, I did. I
Were you still doing at the time when you confronted him?
Well, no, the affair actually came on an entire year prior to me discovering just how terrible the finances were in the home. And I tried to, in sort of I came down with clothes and she was right next door. I said, I came downstairs when I had heard about it, and because this was back in 2022, and I said, here, why don't you just move in with her next door? This will be so much easier. Oh, it's not like that. It's not like that. We're just really close friends and we play tennis and we just have a lot in common. But so I tried then to get rid of the relationship. I'm sorry. I think I forgot where you were going with this.
I asked the next question because everybody's asking questions. You didn't like what you was doing. You didn't. Once you shared it with your girlfriends, what was their response? I want to know what people's response was prior to it coming out. So if you was feeling unease Did you share it with your friends? That, hey, you know, I did
Yes.
this and I'm
A
uncomfortable.
couple, yep, two girlfriends knew.
What did they say?
They were sad and they were concerned. I mean, and just more about also for I think more for my well-being than anything else, because they knew that did not align with my character. They knew that was just not who I was.
Were you ever suicidal, you know, or emotional that you just, you know?
I was, but that I mean, certainly depressed and woe is me, but I wouldn't say suicidal. I did not become suicidal until the news media got a hold of this. Then I became suicidal.
Did they offer you any relief, your girlfriends? Girls are supposed to be like wolves, man. You guys are like thick and thin. Did they offer any suggestions to you?
Well, I think one of my friends said, you know, I'll come over. Do you need me to bring a shovel? You know, my ride or die bestie. So yeah. But, you know, again, I think but I mean, and her own husband was very close with my husband. So, I mean, there were the husbands of my friends even tried to step in and get him to man up or get help or something. There were a lot of people on the outside who tried to step in and make a difference. But he was receptive to none of that. For me, it was, they just knew that what I was doing. And so when I shared that, they were sad for me. I think they knew that the risk was there, but I think like me, they also felt like the chances of somebody finding out were really slim to none.
Mm. But you shared it with a significant person.
Yes. So with that, yes, yeah, with that colleague, you know, and again, this is not, I mean, I don't know for 100% sure that that's how the superintendent learned of me having these accounts. But again, I was on there for just a matter of weeks. And
remember what I told you. I said, come on now. Only 2 people would have told that you was on this platform. Either a jealous girlfriend that assumed, let's use the word assume, you was making a lot of money, or a lover.
Right.
And it turned out to be a lover.
Right. Who was at that time no longer a lover. We did not have a relationship anymore at that time because it was clear that we were.
Let me rephrase it. A hurt past lover.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so, yeah, I shared that. I did. I ended up, that was my downfall. I really truly believe that was my downfall.
What do you think he was going to say to you with you coming to him with that information? I mean, from a man's standpoint, I don't think I want my past lover coming to me saying, hey, you know, I'm on, you know, blah, blah, blah.com. You know, what do you,
right.
You know, what
right.
Because we're human. Let's
sure.
just do like this. Let's put the human factor in.
Yep.
The human factor is going to be like, what the fuck?
Right.
Now the anger is going to pop out. Oh, well, did you do this with every Tom, Dick, and Harry? Right. Yeah. So, okay, now I'm going to really piss you off. I'm going to find a way to let everybody know what the fuck you're doing.
Right. No, it was, I went to him and I shared this because it was like, it would weigh on me at school even. Like it just weighed on me at school. It weighed heavily on me at school. I mean, to the point where, I mean, sometimes I'd have my planning period and I couldn't function because I felt so horrible inside. I knew the moral code of conduct I was breaking or jeopardizing by doing this. And I just needed to get that off of my chest, to tell him, and to just, as somebody else who's in education,
but why him?
As somebody else who's in education, and I don't know. He was definitely he was a superior to me. He was 13 years older than me. It was somebody we talked a lot about. I mean, there was a lot of exchanges for years between us where a lot of advice was given. So I think seeking, you know, some kind of, I guess, counseling, some kind of help, some advice is what I was looking.
You wanted him or somebody to say, I understand why you're doing it.
Yes.
Instead of saying, what the hell
right.
Are you, because everybody
Exactly.
that you
Yes.
talk to so far is like, what the hell are you thinking
Right,
about?
right. Somebody to say, yeah, that
But
is
the viewers will probably be like, but you already know that's not cool. Why not just take the accountability and say, okay, I'm done.
because I needed to pay the bills.
Okay. So now you find out. You share this information with him, and all of a sudden,
And then I'm contacted by the superintendent.
how long did that take to get in contact with the superintendent? Did the superintendent contact you? A week, 3 days, 4?
One day.
So as soon as you show him that, boom.
Well, I told him about it. He called me into his office a few days later and said, I think maybe you should reconsider and take this stuff down. And not 24 hours later, I was contacted by the superintendent.
How does that make you? I know you had to throw up or something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't. I dropped a ton of weight in a very short period of time. Dropped 11 pounds in a matter of a week. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping.
What were you afraid of now? It's out. Who sees it? How many people in my community is going to log in and pay a subscription? I bet your phone was going ding, 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 ding.
Now, are you
I'm
talking
not trying
about
to be funny?
Right. No. Now, are you referencing when the superintendent told? No.
Yeah.
You know what I was most concerned about is that I was because I was told I was being on paid administrative leave. I wasn't going to be able to report to work. I'd racked up 219 sick days. That's how much sick leave I had because I was always at school. I didn't call off. So for me to be off for a number of days, kids were going to wonder. I was also told I was not allowed to contact any students during that time, which would be so unlike me. So when a teacher is removed from a building, and
That's serious.
it's very serious, and a lot of times the conversation becomes, wonder which student he or she was with. That was my initial fear, is they're going to think that I'm not in this school because I did something with another student. That was my initial concern. That horrified me. Not even what this means for my family, what this means if what I did get out. It's that's what I thought. That there was going to be a narrative created that Mrs. Ruziscka was with one of her students. That's why she's not at school. Because when a teacher is removed from a classroom, they've done something really bad. And oftentimes, that's what has been done.
You wind up getting the call from them. Who sat down with you? What did they tell you?
Well, the superintendent told me I was on paid administrative leave, and then come Monday, so that was on a Saturday, and then come Monday, I sat down with the union attorney and then a union representative from the Northwest Ohio area, and they said, I had a couple choices, and I could just resign, or I could fight it. But if I fight it, I run the risk of it going public. So I chose to resign so that it would not go public. Just wanted to just resign. They'll come up with some kind of a story, that in fact the administrators were already talking about. There were some personal problems, things going on at home.
They already was doing damage control.
Correct. Okay. Yep. And then, so I didn't want to, even though I was I was losing all my sick time. I was losing a lot by doing that, but the risk of exposure or the cost of exposure was much greater. So I resigned so that I wouldn't have that media exposure.
Yeah, but even without the media exposure, people already know where your shit's at. We can find you. ... Blah blah blah.
Well, they didn't know. Nobody knew. Nobody knew where to find me. So there was just eventually some rumors. There was some small talk about that. Oh, I heard she was on, because there was talk, obviously. Why is Mrs. Ruziscka not reporting in the classroom? Why is she not here? Right. Oh, now, and then I had just a couple days, and I had to actually go to my classroom and clean it out of my things. So there's a lot of things that then were removed from the classroom. So all of this generates talk. And then somehow, some way, got out there in just a matter of days that's why I was removed from the classroom, because I had an adult site. Who said that? Who shared that? I don't know. But the name of the adult site was not out there. Nobody was peeking at my pictures because nobody knew what the name of the site was. None of that transpired until 2 months later when the media, the local media, and then the national media got a hold of my story.
How did they find out where it was at then?
How did they find out the site?
Yeah.
Well, they found that out because it was in the report from the school district.
So, but you shared the site with the dude that you was in.
Correct.
Involved
Right.
with.
And so that was in the report that the school district
so
had.
Allegedly, he said what site. He shared the information with the superintendent. Superintendent looked at the site.
Well, I
was
told that they actually didn't just look at the site, that they went on there with private investigators to
screenshot.
Yes, and to have get in conversations with me, seek images, videos that then they could use to nab me
if you decide to go to court. But in
to have a legitimate cause to be able to terminate me.
Were they trying to press charges? Because because of the ethnics that you had, that you swore to uphold with the school.
Yeah, there was nothing illegal or criminal about this. So there was absolutely they had no legal recourse after me. So it would have just been a fight in court for me to try to fight to keep my job.
So you resigned from that, but the damage doesn't end. Now the news media gets a hold of this.
Right.
Now how does your life change?
That was life changing. So already after I was terminated, I was pretty suicidal at the first week of because this happened at the end of January of 2024. I was pretty suicidal. I remember being at even the union rep said, I think maybe you need to go see a doctor, because we would be in and I couldn't even keep my composure when we'd be in these, Zoom calls with the attorney and try to work out how we're going to go about this. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor had talked about admitting me. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, my kids are the only thing that I have.
Did your kids know what's going down?
I had to. The kids knew Mom reported for work every single day. I mean, it didn't even matter how horrible Mom felt. Mom was at school.
What did your husband say? All this shit is now out, so to speak.
I think he, honestly, I don't know, but I feel as if there was some sort of gloat, like, I guess I'm not the only unemployed one in the house. There's parts of me that almost feel like he felt better about me suffering. Part of that could have also been him thinking, well, shit, now we don't have any money coming in, right? I don't know. But we weren't speaking much before, and I certainly didn't have much to say to him after that. He didn't say anything about like destroying the family or anything like that until it hit the news media. But yeah, the doctor wanted to admit me, and I just said, the only thing keeping me alive right now are my 2 children, and just for the sake of my kids in the classroom, because I would never want them to think that life is so bad that that's what you have to do, is to end yours. And that's going to make it all better, because it isn't. And my kids were traumatized enough by learning what Mom did, seeing that Mom was broken because she left a job that she loved, where she was for nearly 3 decades. This was going to traumatize them more. Killing myself would have just been another level of trauma for them to endure. So I told her, I said, don't admit me. I'll be good. Because I'm continuing to live for the sake of my children and to show like my students. Because I always would tell my students, you can do hard things. You can. Life is never so bad that you have to do that unthinkable. So
but it was bad, and you did do the unthinkable.
That's unthinkable, but obviously I don't think that you can. I don't think you can equate taking your own life with doing what I did.
So
you can't come back from taking your own life. Right. You can come back from doing what I did, and that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm coming back. Yeah, but yeah. So the news broke mm-hmm. 2 months, almost 2 months after that, and when the news contacted me, I tried. I begged and pleaded for them not to run the story. And then even my daughter returning home from school.
Why did they run the story? It would seem like that you would have some type of right to say, please don't do that.
I believe, and believe me, I talked to people. I reached out to some people in the legal world to say, hey, is there something? And it all happened so fast. And so even my daughter pleading with the anchor on the phone, begging her not to run, please don't run this story. I said, please don't run. My daughter's in a neighboring school. She's dealt with enough trauma already. Kids are already talking in her school about things. Now you're going to put this out there and make it so much worse. So we tried on a phone call, and she just said, thank you. And an hour later, the story aired. And the fallout from that was that her school, my daughter, I mean, I'm sure things were horrific at my school where I once taught, but at her school, I mean, it was lucky that they were going on spring break at the end because the story ran on a Tuesday, that Friday was going to be their last day and they were going to be on break for a week because it was a nightmare. That school was dealing with, because the media didn't just share what happened, they shared the name of my site. And once that was put out there in that local news story, everybody was flocking to it. So much so that I was raising prices to try to prevent people from going on there. Not to make money, but to try to stop people.
Why not just shut the shit down? Delete, cancel, gone. The only people that would have had access is the investigators that took the screenshots.
Right. Well, then I'm back to not having money to pay for my home.
Okay, but what's more important? You're all over this. The collateral damage is the nuclear bomb is going off. Everybody's trying to get the footage, the videos, everything that you got on there, and you live in a small town. I mean, now your reputation is at stake. So what's more important now? Shutting down the site or let the people get all the information possible and make your life even worse?
Yeah, the only thing I did go in and do is I blocked, because I didn't realize then what I wish I would have known initially, is that you can actually block certain states, certain countries. So I went in and I blocked Ohio and the neighboring states, just to try to prevent people in our area from accessing it. But that's all I did because I still needed that money to come in.
People are going to say that's crazy.
Of course they are. And I get that. I
would have just shut it down. See, to me, I would have just shut it down. Period. I mean,
that was the money that was coming in from that was money. It was life changing for me after that. So it's like a double-edged sword, because that exposure was humiliating. But at the same time, that exposure allowed money to come in for me to collect and then put towards helping to save my home.
And like I said, this is judge free. No, I'm not judging. I'm just letting you tell your story. But some people are gonna say that's crazy. Now everybody. I mean, more importantly, you said something. Let's go back to your moral ethics. Now you got teenagers, nine that are now going to your site,
who are seeing a completely different side of Mrs. Ruziscka.
What do you say?
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. And I'm very broken, because I feel like the nearly 3 decades of work that I put in to those students in the classroom and building the reputation that I built as such an exemplary teacher was just gone. That's all I was going to be remembered for anymore.
And not only that, even your kids who have kids.
Correct.
The stain. I'm surprised that, and I know it takes a lot to come here and share this story, and I'm really pleased that you did that. You're clearing the air on what's going on and showing that beast mindset that you got. But I also heard the thing that bugs you the most is you're going to always be remembered, even with your grandkids, as the woman who tried to save her family, this is what it resulted to, and this is the aftermath that happened.
Sure. I mean, as somebody I was so inactive on social media, being a teacher, like that was just what we were preached. I mean, there were plenty of teachers who were active on social media and sometimes in irresponsible ways, posting things or saying things that they shouldn't, getting in trouble for that kind of stuff. But me, I was very inactive because, one, it takes way too much time. It really does. You know, people get lost in the scroll, and I didn't have time for that. And then two, because I knew I just didn't want any window into my personal life. I wanted to be very private. And I didn't want people into that side of me, you know, my personal life. And to be honest, I really didn't have great things to share anyway with everything that was going on at home. But it's interesting that like I go from no knowledge, no real use or understanding of social media to a complete 180 where I am out there with some of the worst content that you could ever put out there on a platform. And now it's all over the place.
Talk about your family, your children, because at the end of the day, you did this to save your children, to save your home. How were their state of mind? How did they deal with this?
It was devastating. I mean, it was devastating because they saw content that they should never have to see, you know, of their own mother. And the humiliation that they experienced because, you know, that's what I became known as, you know, that's oh yeah, that's so-and-so. Yeah. Her mom's on OnlyFans. I mean, that's how she became known. You know, there was obviously even some concern about people getting a misunderstanding of her, of my daughter, and the kind of like just what kind of a person she was. Is she somebody who's out there like her mother, you know, somebody who's going to go and exploit herself, or is, you know, very sexually active? And that couldn't have been further from the truth. So, I mean, as much as I damaged my reputation, I damaged my kids. Even I wouldn't maybe go so far as to say even more, but that damage, that damage, it's hard because that damage is definitely, to me as a parent, as a mom, it's been hard because I truly find it unforgivable. You know, it's something that I will never be able to make up for. I can't. Like you said, what's out there is out there, and it's out there forever. And I will never be able to retract that. I will never be able to undo the damage that was done as a result of that. And as they grow up and have their own families, and then those kids, and the, you know, it's out there forever. So that's what the naivety of social media, and my naivety about social media. I'm certainly well aware of just how powerful social media is now. And unfortunately, it comes at a major cost. And that's my kids.
With that being said, the impact that all this has had on your children, let's talk about the people that was supposed to be there for you, your friends, your family members. How did this affect them? And your coworkers?
Oh, that I think
23 years as a school teacher.
28. 28, yep. In the same school.
Small town. You probably had a lot of people. I know there's talk because they always, I told you.
Yep.
You know they had something going, that something was dysfunctional in the house to begin with. What was that like?
Well, I know, I mean, it was brought up at a department meeting. Somebody asked about, like, why is this, when they talked about that I wasn't coming back. So when the administration met with my English department, and then they were told that I wasn't coming back, somebody did actually even ask, well, is it true that she's on OnlyFans? And, you know, I guess that shocked me. And I think it shocked me more that because I'd been in that school district for nearly 3 decades, because of the friendships that I had developed with colleagues, or the relation, I shouldn't necessarily, but relationships, because I didn't really see most of those people outside, any of those people really outside of school, but the relationships that I built, that I thought, I was surprised that more people didn't reach out to me and ask, even just how I'm doing.
What about the church, the congregation? That's usually the pillar of the community.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was not very involved in my church. When we moved, the church that we were attending before was about 25 minutes from the home. And so we just fizzled out. I lost that connection.
Let's talk about, before we wrap up, let's talk about the two big things. The individual that allegedly started it, what's that like? Does he ever reach out and say, hey, I fucked up? Does he ever take accountability to how this whole thing? Because you went to him in confidence. That's supposed to have been. Not only was he a past lover.
To this day, he says that he has, had nothing to do with it. It was interesting. He said he would stand on the top of a mountain and defend me. Once I shared with him that came out, and because I followed up with him, and he said. He asked me a couple questions. Well, I said, you're not going to believe this. The superintendent contacted me, and he said, wait, what? And I said, yeah. He said, unbelievable. And I said, I know. I my head's spinning right now. And he said, well, did they ask you if anybody else knew?
Judas Scarius.
I thought, and I didn't think about it then, but obviously hindsight's 2020, and it was, but not. Not, I'm so sorry this happened to you. This is awful. You deserve, I know why you did it. Nothing. No compassionate remarks, no sympathetic remarks. Just, did they ask you if anybody else knew? And I said, no, but I won't say a word.
What about your husband?
What about him?
What does he say?
Well,
he saw you and said, what are you doing? And now everything that he probably thought would happen happened.
It did. I think his biggest concern is his last name being dragged through the mud, because it's his last name. I mean, we were married, and that's the last name. So it's the fact that how this made him look. That's what he would often talk about, is how people, because again, like you said, people were saying that he was a part of it. So he hated the ways in which people were perceiving him, or the way that he was being misrepresented as a result of all this. But really, he had no sympathy for me in losing my job.
What has been some of the most difficult things to get over with this? I mean, I couldn't even imagine going to the store.
Oh.
I couldn't imagine going to the mall. I couldn't even imagine being labeled some of the things that you've been labeled. And this is a two-part question. What are some of the things that you've been hearing from people since this? And more importantly, why do you keep staying there? I mean, why not just start? You rebuilding your life. But let's get real. It can't be easy to walk down the street and have the rumors and be classified. What's that like for you?
Oh, it's awful. I mean, obviously, my daughter had another year, senior year of high school, and she was a cheerleader. And so here I am, I'm attending games, football games, competitions and things, I'm out and about, and people pretty much avoided me, interaction with me. In my own neighborhood, there was a private Facebook group that was started so that people could just bash me, I guess.
What's some of the things they say on your social on that page?
I don't know, because it was private and I couldn't get a part.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was private. That somebody created the page. I was told by somebody, but that person did not want to tell me what was on there, and probably so because they knew that I was suicidal. They knew that I was so low that really I just want you to know this was out there. That probably shouldn't even been shared with me anyway. Just don't even tell me. But that was shared with me. But she didn't share the details of what was on that particular Facebook page. But I know, my neighbors in my cul-de-sac, I mean, nobody really had anything to do with me.
I'm pretty sure your neighbor that's down with your husband, she's smiling from ear to ear.
Well, she's not like that. she's really not. So in her defense, but I will say she was not aware when she was having this relationship with my husband that he was not working at the time. That much I do know. So she didn't know all of his dark and dirty secrets that he was keeping. But actually, she's one of the few neighbors that will continue to have we're actually cordial with one another.
I'm going to ask you the big question because we didn't talk about that. You said that because I looked at one of the text messages. Somebody said, well, you didn't say if you took your site down. You said you went and raised your prices. I said, why not take it down? You said because it's still drawing money.
Money. Correct.
So the question is, what's happening now?
In terms of making money?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that site's still pulling in funds. It's not pulling in what it could. If again, I posted other kinds of content on there, but it's helping me pay the bills. I did have to retire early in order again to pay the bills. So by going into early retirement, I'm only getting 42% of my benefits. I'm collecting a retirement check of under $2,000 a month. That doesn't go very far. So the site helps to bring in enough to pay the bills and get me some extra money to help pay off debt that I've incurred over the years.
So some people would be like, why even keep a site knowing that you're validating everything that people are saying about you? Why not just cut it down and look for another job, do something different, find a different career?
The problem is, well, trying to find a different career is a little difficult when your name's been tarnished, one. And two, I am working on trying to build some different things, but they haven't taken off. They haven't launched fully to be able to provide the income that I need to provide. We are still, for me to be able to work, I'm going to have to work inside the home. We do only have 2 cars, and my son needs one for work and school, and as does my daughter. So anything that I do needs to be done in the home. I don't want to I can't afford another car. I'm not going to pay insurance on another car. So those sites are doing what they need to do to help me bridge the gap between that little retirement check that I'm bringing in and then the bills that need to be paid.
Aren't you worried about that site crippling your ability to be sought after and be respected by someone that, like it can still create collateral damage? That doesn't bother you?
No, because I think honestly, I know who I am. I know the attributes. I know what a hard worker I am. I don't believe that any of that should have any bearing on whatever work I need to do. I don't, it's not affecting me in any way in terms of who I am, as I'm trying to employ myself in some way, shape, or form. I'm still Jenny. I'm still, the person who leads with heart, who wants to go out there and make a difference in the lives of others. Mm-hmm. And if that's what is going on behind this, in the background to be able to pay the bills while I'm trying to do, do some good things for others, to me, it doesn't really matter.
Mm. Denny, thank you so much for taking time. But you are still embarking in online. You are still teaching to some degree. You're doing online teaching.
Online tutoring, yes.
Okay, so you still got that going on and stuff.
I'm just waiting, hoping that's going to take off. And once that takes off, then I can shut everything else down and put that big chapter, that explosive chapter in my life behind me.
Sounds like you got a great plan, and my hat's off to you. You definitely got that beast mindset. Remember, people, we don't want to sit here and we want to judge. The ideal of the day show was so she can let you know that when you're down, when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade, and you just keep going. You're definitely resilient. I wish you the best. What I'm going to leave you with the final message. What would you leave the viewers about your story? What would you tell the viewers?
Well, I obviously, I know that there's still there's a lot of good inside of me, and I know that with the good inside of me, there is and there's definitely a need out there for good to be done, and I truly believe that I have characteristics and talent to be able to go out there and make a difference. And by sharing this, I want people to know that, you know, when you find yourself in the dirt, it doesn't mean that you can't bloom again. Doesn't mean that at all. You know, we're always learning and we're always growing. There's always opportunities for both. And that's what I'm continuing to do every single day.
Sounds like a winner. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you subscribe, like, share, click, touch that button. You can make the difference in somebody else's life as well as your own. This has been another, say it with me, exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.